I just got a bunch of carrots out of my garden patch, and I thought, why don't I paint a few garden vegetables before the season is over? So today, and I hope that you'll paint with me, I'm making this really simple little painting here with a radish and 2 carrots. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with a nice pink radish in the middle of my canvas here. So I'm using a 5x7 piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to add some of this burgundy color here that I'm watering down slightly to get kind of that pink poppy radish color that I'm after. And I am going to go ahead and add my first little radish here. So I'm going for like a pretty circular shape, but not perfectly round, because as we know, in nature this would not be perfectly round. So make sure you're purposely trying not to make this perfectly circular or it will look odd. And then I'm going back in with a little bit more of that same color, but a little bit darker, and just adding it to the sides here, like so. And then what I'm going to do is add a very thin kind of line coming out of the bottom of my radish, and that will give it kind of that signature radish kind of look, like so. I think that looks pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a pretty punchy green. So I'm going to use this pretty vibrant green here, and then I think what I will do is add a little bit of ochre to that green. So I'm going to mix it in with my ochre, which is this one here, and see what I think of the green, and see how it kind of mutes that green just a little bit. I think that makes it look really nice. And so then what I'm just going to do is I'm going to start with the tip of my brush here, and I'm using a size 8 with a pretty tapered tip, and I'm going to start with the tip of my brush and make a pretty slight kind of line here, like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my first leaf. So I'm going to make a kind of jagged leaf, ever so slightly. So I'm just moving my brush kind of back and forth to create a slightly jagged kind of impression on the sides here, like so. Yeah, I think that's starting to look like a radish. I might, for my second leaf, add just a little bit more punchy green into my kind of ochre and green mixture here, and then I'll make my second leaf. So I'll do the same. I'll use the tip of my brush to make kind of a line here, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of taper it. So I'm just kind of moving my brush around so that the sides are not super smooth, like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of extra green color here, like so. And now I think I'm going to go ahead and do a kind of an heirloom carrot. So I'm going to go ahead, I think for the first carrot, I'm going to go ahead and do an orange carrot. So I'm going to use some of this orange here to start, and then I think I'm going to add in a little bit of lighter orange as I go ahead and continue with this. So let's see, I'm going to do kind of I like actually doing this without a pencil, by the way. I know a lot of people like to use a pencil to kind of trace the shape, but I think that sometimes that makes us a little bit kind of more structured, which is not really what I'm going for here. Like, I think sometimes when you use a pencil, because a pencil can be so precise, you want to make the kind of that perfect line, and that's really not what I'm after. And I find that if you kind of get used to doing that with watercolor instead, like with your brush, you end up really learning how to do a more kind of loose watercolor shape, and that's really a nice skill to have. So that's what I've been doing. So let's see here, I don't want it to be too pointy at the bottom. I'm going for kind of a smaller carrot, like so. And I think I'm going to drop in a little bit of yellow. So as you see, I'm not using an image or a photo or an illustration. I'm just kind of thinking in my head to what I remember carrots looking like at my farmer's market, and kind of going from there. And I think what I'll do on this side is I will do, let's see, I think I'll do a more kind of yellowy carrot. Have you ever had a yellow carrot? I actually quite like buying those rainbow carrots when you have purple carrots and yellow carrots and orange carrots and you have kind of a mix, and making salads with those. This is probably a video for another day about that, but I do really like to take a vegetable peeler and obviously peel your carrots, but then continue with the vegetable peeler to create kind of long ribbony strands of carrot, and that makes a really nice salad, really pretty salad. Okay, so this is kind of more yellowy here. I'm going to do the same thing, kind of do my shape, and I'm having a little bit of my radish color bleed in, and that's just fine. I'm embracing that, like so. Actually giving me a nice kind of shadow there. There we go, like so. And now I'm gonna go ahead and do my carrot top. So I think for the carrot tops, I'm gonna go with a bit of a darker color. So let's see, I'm gonna try this green here and see how I do. I think I'm gonna mix this green, which is much darker than the one I used originally for my radishes, but I will cut this with ochre again, just to kind of mute it a little bit. And that's actually a really good technique that I like to use when I'm using different greens in a painting. I think it's a nice idea to mix those greens with one same color. So for example, here I'm mixing both of these greens with ochre, and I think that kind of makes it a fail-safe way to make sure your greens kind of go together and they're not going to clash. So if you're not sure and you're early on in your watercolor journey and you're trying to figure out how exactly to mix your colors, that's a good way to do it. And ochre is a really nice color to do that with, actually, because it really goes well with a lot of different greens especially. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and do those kind of bushy carrot greens, which I actually really like to saute. Have you ever tried sauteing your carrot greens? You wash them really nicely, of course, because they can be quite caked with dirt, and then add some garlic and saute them in a pan. I really like topping soups with those carrot tops. They're packed with nutrition, of course, but mostly they're really delicious. Okay, so there we go. So I did put my tape, I don't think I've mentioned, but I did put my tape here. And the reason why I did that is that once I take off that tape, once my card or my print is completely, or my painting rather, is completely dry, then you'll get that perfect edge all around. But in order to do that, do make sure that you're painting to the edge, to the painted, to the line where the tape is, because otherwise you won't get that same effect. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think what I might just do here is just fix this just a little bit, ever so slightly, because I'm finding it a bit jarring, that green. So I just used a wet brush and I'm just kind of mixing that in. I don't mind a little bit of the green, but I thought that was maybe a little bit too jarring, and now that kind of looks like it's where the leaves kind of stem. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think what I will do, I'm going to wait for that to dry, and then I'll be right back with you and we'll add a few finishing touches. Okay, I'm back. My card is dry. What I'm going to do now is take a little bit of brown, maybe this brown here, a darker brown, and mix it in with my orange color, the orange from my carrot. And I think what I'll do is I'll just add a couple little lines, not very many, but you'll see that automatically will kind of make it look like what we remember heirloom carrots to kind of look like. So I'm doing very slight lines, kind of different lines in shape and size, and I'm just adding those on top here to create that kind of effect. And then I will do the same thing, so I'll use that same brown and I'll mix it in with the more yellowy tone here that I used for my second carrot, and kind of do the same thing. I'm using the very tip of my brush. If you're not comfortable doing this, then use a smaller brush. That will do the trick as well, but I'm kind of liking using that same brush to do the entire project here. There we go. There we go. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. I think what I will do is I've been using this color a lot. I'll put the information in the description box, but this kind of pink here, which when I'm showing it to you might look like a pretty potent pink, but actually when you go ahead and use it, it acts really like a neutral. And I like using that for a background, and I find that especially when you're putting tape down like I have around this this paper, it really helps define that line around your painting and give it kind of that definition. And I think it also just kind of frames everything nicely. So I'm just going in here and kind of mixing in the paint with quite a bit of water, so you could do it lighter or darker kind of as you wish, like so, and kind of just going around and making sure that you get a little bit of that pink all over, like so. I think I'm almost done here, so you can take your time to do this. And I'm using a thicker brush, kind of like a mop brush. Oh, a little piece of my brush went onto this painting. Let me take that out here, if I can. There we go. And that's it. But I think a mop brush does make it easier, so that you're not doing kind of small strokes, and you're kind of traveling your paint around a little bit more easily. And that's it. So now I will let this dry for a second, and then I will take the tape off, and I can show you what it looks like, and we're done with our painting. That's it. I'm just speeding you along here as I'm taking off the tape, and I'll get that beautiful line all around my painting. If you painted this, please leave me a comment down below and show me what you've done. And if you like this tutorial, I would love for you to like and subscribe so that you don't miss the next one. I'll see you soon.